Hi, I'm Bona, a UX designer at Sonos.
Hi, I'm Miki, also a UX designer at Sonos.
Hi, I'm Jill, a user researcher at Sonos. First, we really want to thank everyone at Figma for having us. We're very excited to be here.
Today, we will share with you how to make accessibility more accessible for your organization by telling our story. Sonos is a sound company with the mission to help the world listen better. The unique Sonos experience allows users to easily play their audio content in every room across their favorite streaming services effortlessly. To make that happen, our products include a wireless sound system and an app to control the audio being played on the speakers. Today, we have over 13.4 million households across the world that enjoy our products.
We want the experiences created by our products to provide an opportunity for everyone in the household to engage with and enjoy their audio content. So how might we push this mission forward and make our product experience accessible to as many people as possible? Today, we are going to tell you a story about how the three of us came together with a shared passion for accessibility to make an impact from the bottom up. We believe that by learning about the various needs of our many users, we can create better designs that ultimately benefit more people. We will walk you through our story in 3 sections: empathize, apply, and inspire. We'd like to compare our inclusive design journey to almost like looking through a prism. It started with an overwhelming amount of information, but by applying empathy, we were able to narrow down a place to start. This allowed us to have a better understanding of the space, which led to a tangible impact that also inspired other projects. So, like any good design should, our story starts with empathizing with our users. Back in 2019, Paula Barraza, who is a user researcher at Sonos, conducted a survey with our users with various accessibility needs, including visual, mobility, and hearing. This survey had questions pertaining both to our hardware and our app experiences. The goals of the survey were to understand any challenges users had engaging with our products and identify what accessibility features we still needed. On this slide is a snapshot of some themes collected from the survey. The survey results spanned across a variety of topics related to the accessibility of our products. This included, but was not limited to, difficulty navigating the app using a screen reader, the text being hard to read on certain screens of the app, and some features of the hardware being challenging to use for those with limited mobility or vision. This was certainly an overwhelming amount of information, especially since we did not have an established process at the company for improving the accessibility of our products.
We recognized that we couldn't address all of these accessibility challenges at once, so we narrowed down the focus through 2 lenses. To begin, we asked ourselves, what is a key experience of Sonos product? We began by examining the experiences that are related to our app's primary goal, which is to help our users easily find, play, and control their favorite audio content. Through the lens of accessibility, we hope to improve how users can perform these tasks more easily. To narrow our focus even further, we asked ourselves, what are we currently working on? What is the simplest place for us to make a difference? Bona and I were working on app experiences to help people discover and control their audio content. We knew how these experiences were created and which developers we could work with to take things even further. As a result, we decided that an accessibility project related to our daily workstream would be a good place to start. Using these 2 lenses, as well as what we learned from the accessibility survey, we decided to focus on improving the screen reader experience on our app, particularly in areas that help users discover and control their content. If you're not already familiar, a screen reader is a tool that reads out what's on the screen, including both text and visual UI elements. This makes the app easier to understand and navigate for low vision users. We began our investigation into screen readers with VoiceOver, the screen reader for iOS devices. This is an example of how VoiceOver users with low vision might interact with our app. They will use various gestures to navigate. In this example, users can swipe anywhere on the screen to move the cursor to different visual elements, such as header text and images. The screen reader reads out the description of each element, known as the voiceover string. After hearing the voiceover strings, users can activate those elements with other gestures, such as double tapping. We learned from the 2019 survey that some users did not find the voiceover navigation experience intuitive, and some of the voiceover strings also did not accurately describe the elements.
So we knew that we wanted to improve the voiceover experience in our app, and it was important for us that we have support from others who shared a similar passion for improving accessibility. We were lucky that at the time, an inclusive design group had recently formed at Sonos, which consisted of individuals from UX design and user research. The members of this group all shared our goal of addressing various areas of accessibility and other inclusive design improvements. It was great to build rapport with a group of people to talk to about our ideas, as well as hear from them about what they thought our next steps could be. So, to summarize this part of our story, if you want to start empathizing with your audience and learn more about the accessibility problem space, here are some things that worked really well for us that you can try. You can start with hearing about the experiences of users with a range of needs, like we did with our survey. Start considering the key product experiences as well as your current work in order to narrow down a focus area to start at. And finally, find other people in your organization who share your values and talk to them about your ideas.
So, as we transition into the next phase, it was time for us to problem solve and apply our learnings along the way into actionable solutions. However, as we were trying to dive deeper into the project, we were blocked by a lack of knowledge and established process for making accessibility improvements. The first main challenge we were tackling was lack of clarity in the process of implementing accessibility features at Sonos. We weren't sure who was actually doing the work, at which point the work was being done, and what support we needed from the organization to proceed with any accessibility improvement. In order to learn more, we first talked to stakeholders in our company, such as product managers and developers. Through this conversation, we were able to understand the implementation process and peek into the dev environment. We learned that the majority of the work with VoiceOver was being done by our developers and QA to meet the requirements. They were the only ones figuring out how VoiceOver should work in our app. VoiceOver was functional in our app thanks to the hard work by our developers, but we saw potential to make the experience even better. We found out that the implementation process was mostly centered around individual projects, and because there was no consolidated effort or guidelines to create a consistent experience, each development team was making their own decisions for how VoiceOver should work. We saw an opportunity to create an impact on the current workflow by making VoiceOver considerations our responsibility. Just as how UX defines the experience across our app, our goal was to reconstruct the workflow so that UX would intentionally define the consistent VoiceOver experience.
Once we understood the current process, we needed to address the second challenge, which was that accessibility considerations were not prioritized on the roadmap. We recognized that accessibility should not be an afterthought. Instead, it should be a lens through which we approach our current workstream. Instead of starting a new project for accessibility, we saw the opportunity to weave it into our ongoing work. We will go over the design process of how we approach VoiceOver considerations throughout our projects. Remember that this is just one example of how we iterated to find a process that works for us. But every organization is different, and the goal here is to experiment and iterate to find the process that works best for you.
So our process consisted of 3 steps: discover, define, and iterate. When we approach any design problem, we start with discovery work to understand the problem space, define the emerging opportunities, and iterate to find the right solution. VoiceOver considerations should be no different. In our day-to-day design work, we aim to weave in the thinking around VoiceOver for every step of this process. So we first kicked off the discovery phase with hopes to gather deeper insights into how our VoiceOver experience is doing compared to other streaming services. We learned from our initial accessibility survey that there were user pain points around voiceover strings and navigation. So we conducted an experience audit that will inform us around those focus areas. The first step was auditing voiceover on the Now Playing screen for the Sonos app and other streaming services like Apple Music and Spotify. Now Playing is a common screen where users can see and control what's currently playing. And we wanted to compare how voiceover works on this screen to identify the experience gaps and understand the common practice. Since voiceover is an iOS screen reader, we initially thought that mimicking Apple's voiceover experience on Apple Music would be ideal. However, we learned through this audit that the same experience may not apply to the use cases of the Sonos app. While most other services design their Now Playing screen to help their users understand what is being played at the moment, the Sonos Now Playing screen also needs to help users understand which service the content is coming from and in which room the audio is currently playing. The goals of our app experience are unique to our use case, so we needed to better understand what Sonos voiceover users specifically needed and wanted from using our app, rather than simply copying what other services are doing.
We came out of the audit with questions and hypotheses around how our voiceover users might interact with the Sonos app and what might be important to them. Now, we needed to dive deeper into understanding our voiceover users to clearly identify the problems and opportunities for the app experience. We were fortunate to have user research as our partner in this work. We collaborated to validate our hypotheses, which were largely around users' mental models when using the voiceover in our app and how the experience should be built.
We conducted user research in two different parts. First, we conducted a survey that was sent to users who use voiceover on the Sonos app. The goals of this survey were to understand user satisfaction with the voiceover experience, identify particular areas that needed more immediate improvements, and to discover any other pain points in areas that maybe we hadn't even thought of yet. The survey helped us pinpoint the areas we could start investigating more deeply and start to gather even more insights around. So after conducting the survey, we actually reached out to some of the respondents and interviewed them to learn even more about their perspectives and experiences with voiceover on the Sonos app. On this slide is a screenshot from an interview with a user who was able to actually demonstrate for us how they typically use voiceover on the app. Being able to not only hear about users' experiences, but also witness how they actually interacted with our app using voiceover provided us with a whole new perspective on these users' mental models. So after conducting the research and analyzing the data from both the survey and the interviews, it turned out that all of our initial hypotheses were actually wrong. One of our main hypotheses going into the research was that voiceover should read out the elements on the screen in the order of how important they might be for a user to accomplish common tasks. For example, on the Now Playing screen, elements such as the title of the song or the play-pause button might be considered to be more important elements for that screen. However, we learned that it actually makes more sense to users for voiceover to match the visual layout of the screen and read the elements from left to right and top to bottom. This showcases how important it is to conduct user research and actually talk to your users. Had we not done the research and just operated based on our hypotheses, we could have unintentionally made our voiceover experience worse for our users instead of actually making it better.
Once we've identified key areas to focus on and gained a better understanding of a user's mental model, it is time to define the improved voiceover experience through design. To accomplish this, we were fine with being scrappy at first and sketch out the design with whatever tool that was available to us to communicate with stakeholders. However, in order to hand off the design and collaborate effectively, we needed to refine the implementation process. During the iterations, there was a natural back and forth with the developers. We discovered that while there were numerous methods for handing off visual design, there were not that many handoff references for voiceover design. Especially when we were working remotely, it wasn't as easy as tapping our dev partner's shoulder to say, hey, let's do it this way. We went through different documentation versions to help our developers understand how the voiceover experience should be. We tried different formats, such as writing out the voiceover string on an Excel sheet, to make it easier for them to copy and paste the text, but it lacked critical visual references. This format was then evolved into mapping the voiceover string directly onto the visual UI in Figma. To take it further, we began exploring form factors within Figma that would also help us capture feedback from developers and UX writers. We realized that Figma made the most sense as a voiceover spec tool because we were already using it to collaborate with our stakeholders. From the standpoint of design operations, this allowed UX writers to iterate on voiceover string while keeping information centralized, where they can directly comment on the voiceover string writing. This also made it easier to incorporate voiceover considerations into the existing design workflow.
So to summarize, if you're at a point in your accessibility journey where you want to put what you've learned into action, these are the steps we took that could help you. Connect with stakeholders such as developers and product managers to gain their support. Conduct research with your users to test your hypotheses, just as how we talk to our voiceover users. And finally, fine-tune the process that works best for you and your team. Applying our learnings into actionable steps helped us weave voiceover considerations into our workstream. But we know this effort and momentum cannot just stop here. We want to push forward the impact by inspiring others to also take accessibility work into their own hands. So to keep the momentum going, the first course of action we took was to share our stories with others. We recognized through this journey that making accessibility improvements can feel daunting. We shared our story and experience in the format of case studies with the wider UX team to help other designers understand our process that is grounded to our day-to-day workflow. This inspired other designers like us to become familiar with voiceover experience in our app and imagine the potential to apply best practices in their own work.
Another important aspect of telling this story was through the voices of our users. By sharing what we've learned through user research and continuing to gather feedback from our users, we were creating opportunities for our organization to make better decisions with users' voices in mind. We plan to regularly send out a benchmark survey to track the progress we are making on accessibility. Also, as a part of this, user research at Sonos has kicked off a new initiative to partner with an external agency that specializes in recruiting participants that use various different assistive technologies. This will help us evaluate different aspects of accessibility and gather user feedback, which will in turn provide us with valuable insights.
Another way we kept the momentum going is by continuing to work with stakeholders to help understand the importance of planning this work as part of our workstream. We're motivating them to shift our mindsets from fixing accessibility problems to more proactively making decisions to plan accessibility work early in the product development process. We have learned from our experience how difficult it is to amend a mistake as opposed to avoiding one from the start. In order to create a seamless and consistent experience across all of our users, we need to plan ahead to weave accessibility thinking as early in the design process as possible. That way, we can have enough time to iterate and make sure that we're heading towards the right direction starting from the very beginning. In a project that Miki and I are currently working on, we were able to get our stakeholders' buy-ins to dedicate resources to think about accessibility beyond voiceover for the experience that we're designing. We did this by engaging stakeholders like product managers early in the discussion to set clear goals and address accessibility thinking as part of our agenda early on. This will help us and the stakeholders to take ownership over investigating accessibility in the official workstream to ensure that we create an accessible experience for all of our users together.
Finally, we hope to encourage other people in the company to start thinking and acting upon accessibility in their own work streams. We acknowledge that voiceover is just one aspect of accessibility, and we cannot possibly address everything ourselves. We also acknowledge that accessibility is just one piece of inclusive design as a whole. Our company has started to make strategic decisions to advocate for more active conversations around inclusive design. Earlier this year, the wider design team hosted an inclusive design workshop with all designers across different disciplines. So in addition to UX designers and user researchers, we also had industrial designers, packaging designers, and so on. Organizing a workshop like this can be a great way to get people at your organization thinking about inclusive design. So for us, this workshop involved watching a TED Talk, identifying good and bad examples of inclusive design from our own lives, and brainstorming how everyone in attendance could apply what they learned to their own roles.
So to summarize, if you're at a point in your accessibility journey where you need to keep the momentum going, here are some strategies that work for us. You could use case studies and user feedback to tell your story, to engage with a wider audience. You can plan accessibility work early in your process and encourage ownership. You can also engage with other disciplines to educate them on what they can do, inspire them to take actions into their own work stream. So what's next? So we don't have a well-established process in place, but that doesn't stop us from working on it. As UX designers, we notice that things are changing for the better in our daily lives. All of these small things gave us hope. Even though the story we presented today has a conclusion, we would like to know that this journey is a cycle. For us, this is just the beginning. You too can make a difference in your own work stream and be something new for you. We hope you enjoy our story today and have some great takeaways for your organizations. Lastly, don't be a stranger. We would love to connect with you. Feel free to reach out to us through the link on the slide. Thank you so much.